Hello! Oh my goodness, I am so excited and happy to have you here today. This topic is something that is so important to me, and I'm assuming since you're here, it's probably important to you too. So whether you found this video by searching for it or it came up on your feed, or you're just a subscriber for a long time, which thank you if you are, I just am really excited to chat about this today and really dive into this topic in both a scientific way, a personal way, and also a way to help you going forward with tips and tricks to really help you to gain back your period after losing it. And maybe you haven't even lost your period, but you're just wanting to learn more about this topic, and that is perfectly okay too. I think as women, it's so important to educate ourselves because so often we don't chat about the things going on in our body, and it can be very isolating and lonely. And so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to get to create this conversation with you guys. I would love for the comments to be a really kind and open place for you to feel like you can come and share as much or as little of your story as you want. And if you are here, I would love to know down below in the comments why you are here, what your journey is looking like, and if you have tips or things that I missed, because I guarantee I will not cover it all. I would love if you commented them down below and shared. I do just want to say right here as a disclaimer, I am not in any way an expert on the topic of getting your period back or hormones. I am a dietitian, and although I did learn about these things in school, I do not want you to take what I'm saying as medical advice and substitute that for seeking help from another professional. I am by no means perfect, so not everything I'm going to say is exactly what's going to work for you. And I just really want to emphasize that. But this intro is getting too long, so I'm gonna stop and we're gonna go into it, explaining what losing your period means in itself, and that is called amenorrhea. So amenorrhea is the loss of a period, but it is actually a loss of 3 periods. So basically 3 periods not coming. There can be so many different reasons why it happens, and typically it actually occurs because of an underlying cause. It's not just something that occurs out of the blue, typically. Now, keep in mind everybody is different, but what we're going to be talking about a lot when we go through the reasons why this may happen is something called GNRH, which is gonadotropic releasing hormone. So we're going to continually talk about this because that is one of the main things that is affected that causes the cessation of your period. So I just wanted to explain that up front. I'm not going to keep this too scientific. I want to break it down into simpler terms. But the main reasons, many of you guys already know as to why you can lose your period. So obviously there are many factors that go into all of these basically very simplified categories. And also there's tons of things that I'm missing. There's so many specialty reasons as to why this can happen, which is why it's great to work with your own practitioner. But I do just want to dive into the common ones, and we can start off with that excessive change in weight. So we know this and see this as weight gain and weight loss. It can be just the fact that you did this suddenly, but it can also be that you're sitting at a higher weight or you're sitting at a lower weight consistently. So when we look at this in terms of being at a higher weight, weight gain increases the fat cells in our body, which increases inflammation, egg cell maturation, and also leads to insulin resistance. Now on the flip side, what happens with weight loss is that you actually have low insulin. And since insulin regulates our hormones, that is why we no longer get a period. Because of these severe weight changes, a lot of the time we tie this to when people have eating disorders, because people in the eating disorder or even disordered eating community have a much higher chance of developing amenorrhea. And on the same token, when we move to our next category of exercise, that also happens within people that are athletes and people that exercise frequently. Now, you don't have to be an athlete to fit into this over-exercising category. So many people in the general public, especially women, are doing this nowadays, and it's even idolized in our society, which is so unfortunate and yet true. And basically what happens when you're over-exercising is exercise does increase that level of GNRH, which helps us to have menstruation. And so when we do that, we decrease it and do it too much, our period goes away. And this can actually contribute to something we call the female athlete triad. And I'll put a little picture here on the screen, is when you have really high energy expenditure with a lot of exercising, and then this contributes to poor bone density. So those things are very directly tied. Now, to go into our third category, which is stress. And with stress, yet again, it kind of sounds like the same thing, but it is basically that it suppresses that GNRH. And the things that stress us out to can also lead to problems in other categories, right? If you're really stressed, sometimes we over-exercise, or maybe we don't exercise at all. And same thing, if we're stressed, we can lose weight, we can gain weight, we can end up calorie restricting. A lot of those things, you can kind of see how they play together and generate these bigger issues. But now to step a little bit outside of those three issues that are very interrelated, we can look more at the pill. And I do want to say that this is the area that I have the least knowledge about. But I do want to just give a brief overview, because even when I was asking you guys, so many of you had questions about this. So there is something called post-pill readjustment. So when you are on the pill and you come off, it can take up to 6 months for your body to adjust to the fact that you have now come off of the pill, because you have low levels of the gonadotropic hormones, ovarian hormones, and also mild to moderate levels of prolactin in your body. So all of that confusing jargon to say that if you just came off the pill, it's normal not to expect to get your period right away. Now, if it's 6 months and you still have not gotten your period that has spontaneously come back, then that is really time to get more serious and look into this with your doctor, because you do want to make sure that your period is going to be returning. Now, when you're on birth control, there are so many different types of birth control, and birth control truthfully can affect your cycle. There are certain ones specifically that say that, and yet at the same time, it is actually pretty widely accepted by many doctors that women will miss about 1 to 2 cycles per year, even if they're on the pill. I'm not gonna refute or agree with that. I don't have the knowledge. I'm just telling you kind of what that generally accepted idea is. But if you're on the pill and you're either bleeding too much or you're not bleeding at all, you should seek help from your doctor and let them know what's going on. It's incredibly important to advocate for yourself, because it's not normal to be constantly menstruating, and that highlights that there's something wrong with the hormone levels in that pill specifically for your body. Enough of explaining though. I hope that was helpful. There are many things I didn't mention, such as PCOS, there's thyroid issues, there's pituitary issues that can happen, there's random amenorrhea that happens for different reasons. So I don't want to go through all of those, because I really want to get into these tips and explain to you some of the things that you can do. So when you are looking at kind of your life, right, I think it's important to evaluate the areas where you think you may be going overboard. And this can be a really hard thing to do, because in my mind, in simplified terms, when you lose your period is because your body doesn't feel safe. And typically when we think about having a baby, we need to have enough fat protecting our organs that we actually could carry a child safely. And so when it comes to these things, evaluating what is going on for you, and if you feel like you can't do that on your own, seeking out a professional that can help you to do that is very important. And when you do figure that out, then you have to make those adjustments in order to foster the environment that's healthy for your body. So to go through a few, let's say you find out that you're underweight. I know a lot of people that were in the comment box were dealing with this specifically, coming out of an eating disorder or severe disordered eating, struggling to put on weight and struggling to eat enough calories. So my biggest suggestion for this would definitely just be to keep going. I know that's hard to say, but there's no specific amount that works for everybody or exact type of foods that you need to do. Remember to try to eat balanced combination of all foods. Really focus on those fats, because our fats are the building blocks of our hormones, which obviously have a huge part in controlling our menstruation. And also, don't be afraid of those fats and those carbs, because they're so good for you and they give you that energy and they fuel you, which is exactly what our body needs during these times. And so continuing to do that, I just want to remind you that this can be a long process, and you do have to be comfortable with the idea that that may mean weight gain. It may not mean weight gain. It depends on where you're at. But you can't be afraid of that fear of weight, because that will definitely hold you back from achieving that goal of getting back your period. Now, on the over-exercising spectrum, that is another thing that you're going to really have to be comfortable with, the idea of doing less intense exercise, taking it from HIIT training or running or even intense strength training or whatever other types of cardio, to something much more low intensity. That could mean walking, that could mean Pilates, that could mean yoga, really whatever works well for you. And honestly, giving your body rest is so important. If you're working out 7 days a week or 6 days a week even, or even 5, even 4, whatever feels like it's too much for your body, then you have to respect that and listen to it and get more comfortable with taking those rest days. Then for stress, I think these all go hand in hand, right? Because if we're stressing about the food we're eating and the exercise that we're doing, those are gonna contribute, and it's like that little triangle. It's like another triad essentially, even though it's not coined that way. But when you think about stress, if you've already done those other two and you're trying to figure out that last piece, it's typically this. And stress reduction looks different for everybody, and I know that it's also not always possible in the same way for everybody, and not as achievable for everybody as others because of different life circumstances. So it's such a blessing to be able to take the time to reduce our stress, but I do think everybody can take those steps. For me, which I know this is cliche and you all may make fun of me, but meditation was really helpful. Journaling was helpful. Going on walks was helpful. Spending time with the people I loved. Watching trash TV and just tuning out. Setting work hours so that I wasn't taking work home with me. Creating boundaries with relationships in my life. Seeking support and people that I really trusted. And also for me was really getting to the root of my eating disorder when that was happening, and figuring out what was going on and why, and taking those action steps. I know that may sound like it is stressful, and it is, but over time, as you can stop obsessing about food and exercise, that stress level really does start to reduce so significantly, and it's so incredibly healing. I think that the biggest thing with all of this, even if you are in that post-pill readjustment as well, is patience. Because I think it can be so incredibly disheartening to feel like I've freaking increased my weight, I've increased the amount of calories I'm eating, I've decreased my exercise, I'm really decreasing my stress, like I'm doing all the things right, I went off birth control, whatever it is for you, and yet my period still hasn't come back. And girl, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I stand with you. That is so frustrating. In my own experience, it took almost about a year to get it back, and it was a long ride of getting it regular. Like just now I feel like it's getting regular, probably almost a year and a half later. And at the same time, I've heard of women that it took 2 years for them to get their period back. I'm sure there's women that it's taken much longer. I'm also sure there's women that it's taken much shorter. And I think that it's giving yourself flexibility, grace, understanding, and making space for yourself, that you can't have these expectations of what it needs to look like or when it needs to happen, because that actually just contributes to that stress that we're feeling. And I know that's easier said than done, most definitely, but I just do think that's something to remember and really hold with you. Biggest thing that I want to suggest to you guys is to remember the power of getting your hormones checked and talking to your doctor. I cannot explain how important this is, and I know that this is not accessible to everybody, which I really wish it was, and I know that is hard. So if you don't have access to this right now, I don't want you to think that it's not possible. It's just that when you're going through these things, the best way to tell what's going on in your body is to get those hormones checked and get your labs checked. That way they can tell you what's going on with your testosterone, what's going on with your estrogen, what's going on with your progesterone, what is going on with all of these markers that we need to get in tune with to see why our body is reacting the way it is. And those will actually change throughout this process. So whether you feel connected to working with a doctor, working with a hormone specialist, working with a naturopath, which is what I chose to do, all of those are totally okay. I just think finding that person that works for you, that aligns with what you believe in, and moving with that throughout the whole process. And I did get a lot of questions continually about what to do with a doctor that is suggesting to get on birth control to get your period back. So I don't feel equipped to answer this question, because I really have so much respect for every single different woman's journey and what they choose to do. To speak to my own personal experience, I felt that I didn't want to be on the pill. And so I think that women's bodies have operated naturally for such a long time that, in my personal beliefs, it doesn't make as much sense to me to add some more hormones on top of that. But I have nothing against birth control for the people it works for. It did not work well for me at all. I had issues with continually bleeding and then not bleeding and all the stuff in between. But I think go with your gut. Like, if it doesn't feel good to you to go on birth control and that's not something you want, there are ways to get your period back without going on birth control. If it feels good to you to go on birth control, go right ahead. That is all in your own journey, and I think that's really important to remember. I feel like we should go through just a few of the questions that you guys had that really dove deeper. I feel like this was much more of an overview. I also didn't really take the time to share my journey because I just really wanted this to be about you guys. But if you want to see more of any of those pieces or parts, please let me know. I will link a video down below about my personal eating disorder journey, but if you have more questions, you can always comment down below, shoot into my DMs, whatever works for you. Okay, so when I asked about nutrition tips and supplements, we did chat a little bit about nutrition tips, especially for people that may need to gain weight. Totally suggest healthy fats and taking those nut butters, those avocados, your omega-3s, and fish and walnuts and all of that good stuff. I love Blender Bombs as a product that helps to get in those healthy fats really easily. In terms of supplements, I don't want to speak on this too early, but I am trying out this supplement called Elix. I'll link it down below. And it's really, really cool what they do if you really like the idea of natural healing. Essentially, you take a quiz online that is very specific to you. You also take a picture of your tongue, which is a very common Ayurvedic practice. They think that the tongue really shows a lot about us. And from that, they actually generate a prescription, quote unquote, for you. It's really just a blend of herbs, and you take those herbs depending on what you have. So maybe you have a period but it's irregular, you have a consistent period, you have a heavy period, you don't have a period at all. Whatever it is, you'll fill that whole thing out and explain it, and they give you directions on how to take that. It's pretty affordable price as well, so I would highly suggest checking it out. I don't want to say like I completely think it changed my life. So far, I've taken it for one of my periods. I did notice a reduction in my symptoms, but I know that's different than someone taking it that has lost their period. In terms of other things, I think that it's really specific to your doctor and what they would say. I mean, that's our first line of support. I wouldn't suggest just going and like Googling, oh, what should I take because I lost my period? That's really not always the best thing. So when asked about the main complications of not getting your period, so this is different for everybody, but the biggest one, first of all, in the moment, no matter what, you have infertility, because if you're not menstruating, you're not ovulating, you can't get pregnant. The other thing ties back into the female athlete triad, but this can happen in anybody that loses their period, is a risk of osteoporosis, which can really lead to increased risk of breaking bones earlier, which is a really big risk for mortality. Not to get like that, but just to be honest, I think sometimes we don't think it's that big of a deal, and I don't want it to be scary, like you need to stress more, but I just want it to be motivated in that there are definitely. Last thing I just want to cover before we're done, because I've been chatting her out for a while, is the most common theme that I've seen throughout all of these questions in my DMs is basically this idea of like, how do I get it back after an eating disorder or calorie restriction or over exercising? And I know that we took this as a theme throughout the whole video because it's such a big reason, but I just think that the thing that happens, and I can resonate with this so much, which is why I bring it up, is we think that we can do something else other than eat more and exercise less to get our period back after we've had an eating disorder, but I just want to tell you that you can't. Like, you have to commit to recovering and to doing those things that make you uncomfortable in order to create change. And I know it's hard, but I just want to remind you that you can do this. You can do anything. You are so much stronger than you think you are, and you are so powerful, and food and exercise do not deserve the control that they have on your life if you're going through this. And I know that sometimes it can feel impossible, and trust me, I felt like I would never ever heal, and yet here I am today, like with a period and recovered and getting to work with women that deal with disordered eating. And I just feel like I am the luckiest person in the entire world, and that's why I want to tell you, because that is a reality for you. You can do that too. I don't want to go so in depth with it, but I just feel so inspired to share that with you because it's just so important, and don't forget it. And if you don't have people supporting you, I want to be there for you and remind you that you can do this, and I'm here for you, and I love you, and I see you, and I stand with you in everything that you're going through. And no matter what, you need to find those people that do the same thing for you throughout this process if you need that. And I think that sometimes we sell ourselves short on that. So sorry to get all sappy on you and all emotional, but I had to. You know, I had to. I always do it with these type of videos. I just get so inspired. But one last thing, and then I'm done. If you do struggle with disordered eating, I don't work with people that have eating disorders, but if you struggle with disordered eating and you need help, and your goal is to get your period back or to just loosen those rules that you have around food and create that healthy relationship with it and really find the way of eating and living that works for your body, I am accepting clients. I currently am on a wait list, but I can include a link down below to schedule a free 20-minute nutrition consult where we talk through things, see if we're the right fit to work together, so I can get you on that wait list. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I love having the opportunity to get to work with you if you're interested in that and you need more actionable steps to help you to increase weight and to help you to reduce those reins on exercise. Every single week, that's what we do. Small steps that leave a big impact. So that's it. That's the video. It was so awesome to get to film this video for you guys today, and I hope that it was helpful. Let me know if you want another part to this, if you want a Q&A, if you have questions. I'll leave my Instagram down below. I'm always open to DMs, but also leave them in the comments. If you did like this video, I make tons of videos about intuitive eating, food freedom, being a dietitian here on this channel, and I'd love for you to stick around. And that subscribe button is right down there. That like button is also down there. If you did like this video, you want to support me, it would mean so much. But no matter what, I just hope you know that I'm thinking of you, and I know that you can do this. And thank you again for watching today. I'll see you back here soon.